Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and I would like to introduce our guest for today, Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
And our own Ivan Kucherenko from Kiev, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Hi, everyone.
Ivan, would you like to start the program with a video that you have?
Yeah, I've got a really interesting video for today, so let's start with it.
Yeah, let's start it.
To Russia.
Moldova. Georgia.
A full-scale military invasion.
5 часов утра я находился.
And here is Ukraine now.
Начали атаковать Киев.
How is Russia rebuilding its empire, and what country will it target next? When the Kremlin liberators land in your backyard, remember you are in trouble, big trouble.
Россия никогда, нигде, ни разу не угрожала украинскому народу.
While most modern states promote human progress,
we are making body parts a breakthrough in the fight against HIV.
Of the world's most powerful rocket ever built,
Russia, like any other empire, feeds itself through conquests and wars.
Мы обязаны твердой рукой пресекать правовой беспредел.
The breakup of the Soviet Union saw 15 of its republics declare independence. Russia was not excited and began staging an imperial comeback.
Судя по всему, на нашу долю тоже выпало возвращать и укреплять.
Russians recycled the dirty tricks out of the Machiavelli playbook. The first step is to incite an internal conflict. A bully always singles out the weakest. Russian leaders set their eyes on Moldova, the smallest of former USSR republics. Moscow usually spins a story about oppressed Russians and Russian language curbs. The Kremlin stoked dissent in Transnistria, where ethnic Russians and Ukrainians lived, and used its own garrison to help the separatists break away.
Наша историческая территория, там проживают русские люди. Они оказались в опасности. Мы не можем их бросить.
The price? Over 1,000 killed. The region turned into a backward place of ruin and desolation. Were there any consequences for Russian leaders? It made Moscow more brazen.
Россия исторически была и останется гарантом безопасности народов Кавказа.
International borders? What borders? They're just blurred lines. Emboldened, the Kremlin came back in 2008 and provoked a war in Ossetia, a remote region of Georgia.
Russia's actions have cast grave doubt on Russia's intentions.
А что вы хотели, чтобы мы там только перочинным ножичком, что ли, размахивали?
The second Russian trick is sending his army as peacekeepers to legitimize an invasion.
Путин меня предупреждал, что мы будем с вами воевать.
Dmitry Medvedev, the Russian president, says that Russia has nearly completed its military targets.
Наша историческая территория, там проживают русские люди. Они оказались в опасности. Мы не можем их бросить.
French leader Sarkozy arrived to save Georgia from occupation, but Russian troops stayed put in the breakaway region.
His objective, the withdrawal of Russian troops from Georgia.
Instead of Russian troops moving out of the Georgian city of Gori, more are moving in.
It caused a stir in some European capitals, but Russia got away with it again.
I think that we have a very difficult situation with Russia.
I would not like to blame the Russian people that the Russians are aggressive.
Things turned really ugly in 2014 when Russia came after Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has long been obsessed with Ukraine.
In his mind, Ukraine is not an independent country. It needs to be subsumed into Russia. That's what this is about.
This is their revenge for their failure to hold the Soviet Union.
While the world's eyes were on the Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russian generals had everything ready for the invasion in Crimea.
Військова прокуратура зафіксувала і перекидання військ транспортними літаками та вертольотами.
Little green men were sent. And then comes the third trick, a sham referendum. And voila.
Наша историческая территория, там проживают русские люди. Они оказались в опасности. Мы не можем их бросить.
How did the world respond?
This is a wake-up call.
Each time Russia takes these kinds of steps that are designed to destabilize Ukraine and violate their sovereignty, that there are going to be consequences.
Yet Russia walked away with a chunk of Ukraine's territory.
I think it's a moral victory for the Russian diplomacy.
And soon it targeted Ukraine's Donbass. Step 4 of Russia's playbook is to create a fake independent state for their proxies.
Россия, матушка, забери Донбасс домой.
The Kremlin recycled its playbook in Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine. The weak response to its tricks backfired in 2022.
Принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
В багатьох містах України було чутно вибухи. Ми вводимо воєнний стан.
Country has been invaded by its nuclear-armed neighbor on multiple fronts on Ukraine.
That's right. We're hearing from an advisor.
The Russian invasion in Ukraine rocked the world.
The unthinkable has happened here. We have seen the cruel face of Putin's army.
Bucha, Mariupol, Olenivka. The world leaders are now watching with unease. What's next for Russia is anybody's guess.
Граница России нигде не заканчивается.
The Baltic states, Poland, or maybe Finland again.
По большому счету, всерьез пока еще ничего не начинали.
You all be aware.
Yeah, very powerful video, Ivan. Thank you so much. And it's very realistic, everything what's happening. And when they showed several times Putin saying that, well, there are a lot of Russians and we cannot leave them alone, so we have to help them or so on. That's exactly what Hitler was saying before Second World War, that in the Czech Republic and Poland and everywhere else, there were a lot of ethnic Germans. A lot of ethnic Germans. Moscow too.
Even New York is not safe. There are a lot of Russians on Brighton Beach, and Russia can't leave them alone.
Russia needs to help them because they're being executed by.
Yeah, there are a lot of Russians. There are a lot of Russians who moved into my area, my cities. So what is Putin going to do about that? It reminds me.
Jonathan, you're in danger.
Yes, I am. Yeah, it reminds me of that poster I think I told you all about that I saw during the Cold War we had in our office when I was a Soviet threat instructor. We had a poster that showed Russian tanks rolling down the streets of Moscow in Red Square. And the caption reads, Russia, visit us before we visit you.
Yeah. So you have actually two ways. Either you have to leave your location to the place where there are no Russians, or you may initiate some petition to resettle those Russians, probably return them back to Russia where they will be safe, at least, I hope.
Well, let me reflect on a subject that I've just touched on our previous program on POT TV. Right now, where are we right now from military point of view? It looks like both sides want to have an attack. And it seems to me that at this point, as of today, neither side has enough power to have a decisive, winnable attack. They want to attack, but do they have enough firepower, enough weapons, ammunition, and everything else to have a successful attack? It's a question mark. And I would say that the way I look at it, listening to several commentators or so on, that neither side has a capacity to disable its enemy and have a very successful, decisive attack. If that's so, then what to expect in the next 2, 3 or more months? In Russia's case, In my opinion, well, they have a program of have 400,000 more contract fighters. Is it realistic? When are they will be able to actually fight? A lot of question marks. Some commentators believe that to 400 it's simply unachievable. It's just impossible. And even they will get them, they don't have even facilities how to train them, to equip them, to give them ammunition and all that stuff.
And their best equipment has already been either captured or destroyed. So they're basically fighting with it. Yeah, they're breaking out the T-54s. Oh my!
Well, next time they will start bringing horses and sabers, and
we'll see cavalry charges and replays.
They have T-32, I guess, those tanks on monuments, tanks of victory in the Second World War, so they can take them from monuments and which put it all across the cities in Russia, and probably they will have them on the battlefield.
Well, actually, they can bring the monuments themselves to the front lines and hide behind the monuments, and this way save a few lives here and there. And okay, that's the case of Russia. Now, the case of Ukraine, in my opinion, Ukraine have now, with all the latest equipment of Western weapons, ammunition, and so on, I think Ukraine has enough power to withstand Russian attack, to continuous fight for the next 5 years if needed, 10 years, give or take. But it's not enough for decisive attack. So think Ukrainian strategic doctrine right now is hold on with the decisive attack until such day will come when we will have all necessary ammunition and weapons and so on. So latest comments now today in the morning, I heard that in fact Ukraine needs not 200 tanks, not 300 tanks, well over 1,000 tanks. That's what's needed really to overrun Russia and get them out of Crimea and Donbass and from everywhere. Now that's a question. Where in the world Ukraine is going to get this 1,000 tanks or more? I don't have an answer to that question. Jonathan, do you?
Yeah. The other possibility that exists is that, remember, again, I'll use an example from the Second World War on the Western Front. The Germans on the Western Front had retreated mostly, almost to the Rhine, to the Siegfried Line, to their defensive lines, and it was the assessment of the U.S. intelligence services that the Germans were not capable of launching a counteroffensive. Now, the Germans, for their part, had concealed, fairly well concealed, their raising of 2 panzer armies, which they decided to employ against the West, and specifically against the Americans in the Ardennes, which was, the Americans had been using that as a place to rest their new troops. And so essentially, if they were counting on the terrain and with their perceived German weakness to to prevent a German counteroffensive. Well, as we know, the Germans took advantage of that, and they used radio silence and everything else as best they could to conceal their intent to attack. And they did achieve tactical and operational surprise, but the Americans were able to respond quickly enough to seal it off and hold. What I'm saying, how will we apply it to the current situation? To observers here in the West, and quite possibly to the Russians in the East, it would appear that although the Ukraine is able to hold quite easily right now, the consensus is they don't appear to be able to launch a counteroffensive within the next few months. However, as we know in the history of warfare, that one side or the other has often managed to conceal its intentions and its capability until the decisive moment. So, again, it would not surprise me, given Ukraine's tenacity and skill in conducting its operations thus far, if the Ukrainians do intend to launch a counteroffensive within the next several months, they are not going to display that capability or intent, right out for everyone to talk about. They may be doing the equivalent of playing possum, playing dead, or playing too tired to attack, or just like a boxer who is apparently too tired to attack, and all of a sudden unleashes a flurry of punches that sends his opponent to the ground.
Ali.
Well, he pulls a Muhammad Ali, pulls a rope-a-dope, and and just basically feigns weakness until finally he sees his opening, and then unleashes a flurry of punches that knocks out his opponent. This could be what the Ukrainians have in mind. It's a wait-and-see attitude. It would not surprise me if the Ukrainians managed to unleash at least a local counteroffensive that would retake an important objective. And I'm saying that the Ukrainian armed forces right now are probably watching very carefully, making maximum use of the intelligence information that they are getting from the U.S. and NATO allies, and they are going to pick and choose their fight. They're going to pick their moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ivan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan completely. And coming back to the question of tanks, we have a really great supplier of tanks, actually, for armed forces of Ukraine. It's Russia. And armed forces of Ukraine captured hundreds of tanks after retreat of Russia from Kyiv, Sumy, and Poltava regions. And after the counterattack in the Kharkiv region, they also claimed about 2 battalions of tanks. It's like around 100 of tanks. And for now, Ukrainian army has more tanks than we had in the beginning of the invasion, even without any assistance from Western countries. Of course, we need even more tanks. We need those tanks that United States, Germany, Great Britain, and other countries promised us already, and we need even more. But more than tanks, we need F-16 fighters, and we need long-range missiles like Storm Shadow or ATACMS for HIMARS,
especially for Crimea. To overtake
in order to reach the military bases and aircraft bases from which Russia is striking our territory, which are far beside the battlefield, the front lines, and for that we need long-range missiles, and we need F-16 fighters, and this is what Ukraine really needs. But coming back to your question, yesterday I read a really great interview with Daniel Rice. He's an advisor of General Zaluzhny, and actually he's a veteran of wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and has a Purple Heart Award. And I really liked his interview. It's in Ukrainian, actually, but I can send you a link. Probably you'll be able to read it. And he said that Zaluzhny, his chief commander of Ukrainian army, has a really great plan. And Russians will be so surprised that it will be their best possible surprise before their death. So he really believes in the counter-attack plan of Zaluzhny, and seeing those miracles which Zaluzhny and his team has shown in previous month and in previous year, we believe him as well. So we just have to take some patience to wait for this counterattack to start. But unfortunately, we will know any details about it. The Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Hanna Maliar, asked Ukrainians and Ukrainian journalists to stop discussing the upcoming counterattack, stop discussing any details about it. There is a panic and hysteria in Russia on their propagandistic TV channels that Western countries stopped to publish the information about military support for Ukraine. They don't have any information whether Ukraine received the weapons and what weapons actually Ukraine is receiving, except of some significant shipments like the tanks, which we yesterday at least we received those
from England, Challenger.
Yeah, Challengers, Leopards from Germany, and Abrams from not Abrams, but I think Bradley from United States. And yeah, they're really feeling terrified about this because Russian intelligence is so powerful that they can't get any data, any intelligence on the weapon shipments to Ukraine.
They're having to rely on open sources, and which
and
they aren't unless we tell them.
And they will get really great surprise, and we are waiting for this surprise to start in upcoming months or two. Or actually, it's not important when this counterattack will happen, but we believe that it will be quite surpriseful and powerful.
Ivan, I think I got this question solved. Why Russians are sending all these old T-54, T-34? Because they understand that they will end up in Ukrainian army anyway. So it's better if Ukraine will have all these old machines instead of Leopards and Challengers. And
hey, they can use those old tanks for defensive positions.
I've seen several videos from the battlefield, and the Ukrainians they're not even capturing those old tanks. We don't need those wreckage. Actually, let it stay where it stays. And Ukrainian army now has modern tanks, and I hope they will use it quite well on the battlefield. I think Sasha is frozen.
Oh, Sasha is frozen. Oh my goodness! So someone needs to go warm him. Someone needs to go warm him up. It's cold up there in Canada.
And Jonathan, I hope.
I'm still warm. You and I are having a wonderful conversation. Okay, Sasha will kick in here eventually. But in any case, no, I agree with you that the coming counteroffensive right now the only variable is timing. And that is totally up to the Ukrainian general staff, and they are simply let the people talk, let them speculate, let the Russians guess as to just how and when the timing of the Ukrainian counteroffensive will come. And we can be fairly certain, given the performance of the Ukrainian armed forces thus far, is that Ukraine has learned its lessons very well. They're excellent students of history. They have exceeded the expectations of Western observers and certainly those of their Russian opponents thus far. And now it's just a question of they are keeping their own counsel, keeping very quiet about that. You don't see the Ukrainian general staff out there making statements about, well, we're going to launch our counteroffensive and here's where we're going to launch it. And so, no, they are going to let the Russians guess and keep them off balance and keep them nervous. All the while, the Russians are continuing to pile up casualties and just making it that much more difficult for the Russians to be able to mount any kind of counteroffensive, any kind of offensive in the next year or two. So in any case, oh my goodness, this is there are some potentially very exciting developments. It's not like the phony war in World War II, before the Germans launched their offensive into France. This is more like a strategic pause. Russians have reached their culminating point, and they've got They have clearly exhausted their offensive potential against Ukraine, at least in the near term. And now it becomes a question of, okay, your opponent's exhausted, and now, like a good boxer, the Ukrainian armed forces they're now looking for their opening to counterattack and hopefully put the Russian army on the floor to stay.
Yeah, actually, I've listened for several analytics, and they confirm that the Ukrainian army will counterattack in the time when the Russian forces will be exhausted of attacking. The Ukrainian army will get all necessary resources for the attack, and the weather will be good for attacking.
Yeah, they're looking for the right combination of favorable weather, the minimum supplies that they think they need in order to make that counterattack, and plus that key variable, the achievement of operational surprise. If they can catch the Russians off guard, thinking, oh well, they're not going to be launching an offensive, and that's when they launch it.
Yes.
And
sorry,
Sasha.
my internet failed, so I'm
oh
going
my goodness!
now with my iPhone instead.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, so it's very interesting time. We have to still get a little bit more patience. So April is almost there, and if it's not April, it's going to be May, but it's coming. We know that. Okay. In the meantime, my internet is back, but it's already no time left, unfortunately for us. So let's meet again on Friday. And hopefully internet will not fail us.
Hopefully it will cooperate.
Thank you so much for today's programs. All the best to you, to our listeners. Bye-bye, everybody. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Thanks.